Hi, everybody. We'll go ahead and bow in. Onegaishimasu. All right. So today is let me get it here, chapter 13, Acting as Otomo. I'm going to read you a clip from the manual. Acting as Otomo is awareness training. Awareness of everyone and all things within your sphere of responsibility at all times. We're used to thinking only of our own personal needs. This is not wrong, but simply very ineffective. We cannot be thinking of only ourselves and at the same time effectively taking care of the needs of others. The sensei must be free to concentrate on teaching those around him. If he is distracted by your inefficiency, he cannot do that. Remember, nothing is too small or too big to be considered outside of your range of responsibility. So for me, that kind of brings up the um, the responsibilities of a student and the responsibilities of a teacher, because being an Otomo is basically, it means humble assistant, but you're just basically assisting the teacher, either in a class or in a seminar, or to go from point A to point B, to help plan a trip, etc., that he may be conducting. I've worked as Curtis Sensei's Otomo on multiple occasions, and I've even somewhat assisted Shinichi Sensei as Otomo when he was here on Maui. Um, I've Otomoed for other teachers, and it's something that really amplifies the responsibilities that we come across. The three that responsibilities of a teacher are, number one, to reveal the presence to the student. Number two, to train the student in the methods and tools that the student will need for growth. And number three, to point out and put in touch with the internal material that is in the student's way. Hence, amplification on number three, if you're the Otomo. Um, the student only has two responsibilities: to practice the instructions as they are given, emphasis on without editing, and number two, to make use of the instructions and understanding in their daily life. So amplify those two as well, you know, and that's what an Otomo is, in a sense. They're always being, instructions are always being amplified. And many people don't know this. This kind of came um, across in uh, when President Obama's first term. He had what they call a body man, and that's his personal assistant, the guy who arranges for everything when Obama travels and everything around the White House. And those kind of came into play in the Richard Nixon era. Richard Nixon was the first president to have a body man, and then ever since then, every president has had a personal assistant, and that has been something that they've had. And Obama's personal assistant, wrote a book, and he kind of gave a behind the curtains, like the time he left Obama's briefcase with all his personal everything at a campaign stop, and or another time when he didn't let Obama know that his time was up and critical, and he had to move on to the next spot. So when he gets to the next spot and he's late, he looks at his personal assistant or his body man and says, "Why are we late?" And the guy looks at him and goes, "Well, maybe if you hadn't talked so long at the last place." And Obama just looked at him and said, "I don't have to deal with that. Please correct him." And he walked away. I mean, there's been a number of times where I have made similar mistakes, and that's kind of the Keiko style of Otomo, and that's when you're, uh, having to worry about the luggage. You've not done what you're supposed to do. You're always behind the power curve. You're always, you're never leading. You're always catching up. And that style of Keiko style practice is, as we know, in Aikido practice, you're always late. You're always late. That's why we practice, you know, move on the E of Ima, in a sense. So yeah, that's one of those things that people don't realize. Um, the behind the scenes, the Otomo is always in the shadow of the sensei, but not noticed, and that's where he should be. He's not getting in the way of the sensei. He's not straggling behind. He's basically shadowing. In fact, they have a term for it in Japanese, and it is called aun kokyu. Aun kokyu is the Japanese term for how you should be with your teacher. And people may not know this, but if you go to any temple in Japan, you'll see two guardians. They're dogs, and they're at the front of the temple. And a lot of them sometimes are standing on a ball, or sometimes they're standing. They look very angry. They look kind of like lions, but they're considered temple dogs, and they call them A and Un, and that means they're always together. They're never separate. They're always together wherever they go. Guarding the temple, wherever they go, they're always together, and they call it Aun. And one time, Otsuka Sensei was teaching a seminar, and he was describing Kokyunage, and he said, "Oh, Aun Kokyu," and because Kokyu, how we most people kind of have an understanding that Kokyu is breath. Yes, that's true. However, Japanese words have many multiple meanings. The main meaning of kokyu is timing. Timing. So when you would hear somebody say, "Oh, there's the kokyu," that's the timing. When you see two uke and nage moving together, that's the timing. And so that's where that came from. That un kokyu came from the temple dogs guarding the shrines in Japan. So I know many of you may or may not have been a Tomo for someone. I know Fincher has, and I've never personally had an Otomo, but I've had assistants. And let me tell you, when you have an assistant, it makes your job as a Tomo harder. You'd think it'd make it easier. Oh, I've got people to help me. But actually, if they don't know what they're doing, it makes your job harder. It's like you have to be the ultimate manager to take care of them, explain to them in detail what needs to be done, and then you have to trust but verify. Trust that they did it, but verify they actually did it correctly. And I my first experience with having assistants is when I tomoed for Curtis Sensei in Seattle, and I was a student in Arizona at the time. I had asked him to be as a tomo because he didn't have one coming from Hawaii, and I had two third queue people. I think I was first queue. Yeah, I was first queue, and I had two third queue people that were assisting me. And oh my gosh, I was delegating, but they'd never been a Tomo, and I was trusting them but not verifying. And Curtis Simpson would go, "Oh, where's this?" And I'd be like, I'd look at my assistant and go, "You got that?" And they'd be like, "No, no." Oh, sorry, Sensei, I don't have that. Because then you have to take the brunt of it because you're responsible. And if you're just thinking of yourself and thinking of how you can best do it, that's not covering the basis. You need to be, 5 steps ahead and knowing what's going on, not only with your teacher, but your other people around you. And you're just, I remember one time Fincher described it as being a butler, but I'd have to say it's more than that as well. Like, another student described it as being a mother. Like, when I first had my child, I didn't really realize what a Toma was until I had a baby who couldn't take care of himself. And I thought to myself, yes, but the baby can't talk back and yell at you or correct you when you're wrong. So, hence the emphasis on the other section of pointing out is not there with the child, because you're ultimately the boss and you can cover up for your mistakes very easily. Trust me, I know. But when you're a Tomo, you cannot cover your mistakes. I mean, you really have to own it. You have to own everything. When Curtis Sensei used to sit on a Seiza bench, I remember being going to Europe and carrying a Seiza bench, and then he needed it in their. They had a little dojo in Helmand in their house, and I remember getting it out, using it there, and then I forgot to pack it. So when we went to the seminar, it was left at home. And I remember, halfway there, Sensei goes, "So, did you get my Seiza bench?" And I was like, I look over at Fincher and I go, I didn't get a sensei. No, sensei. And then he was just, really, he was really upset because I had done it. And of course, it's just on me. There was no one else to blame but me. So I just remember having that rude awakening of forgetting things, and that wasn't the first or last time that I ever forgot anything. So ultimately, you want to get to what Curtis Sensei would be shugyo practice as Otomo, which is kind of one of those things that I look at as being a lofty goal in a sense. I don't think we're ever quite there. It's never ending. The training is infinite. Therefore, being, a Otomo is also very infinite. So I would look at it in that aspect as well. But I'm open to hearing any questions or things that you might want to know, or anything on this chapter that you may wonder about. This chapter is basically Keiko stuff. You know, it's not really a Tomo. You got to really do it to know it. You got to experience. You got to get into the fire and really realize it. You can't really read it from a book. You know, and you really can't have an Otomo unless you've been an Otomo. I mean, it's kind of like, you have to do a job before you can be a manager, and manage people doing that job. You have to know. You have to know how to do that job. So I would love to hear what you guys think. Anybody want to volunteer, or I could just choose? What do you think? Fincher looks like he's ready to push the button there.
Oh, Sensei.
Hello.
Yeah, I'll start out here with get the discussion rolling. Um, yeah, I mean, I've only done probably Keiko, Otomo, um, but I sort of have an issue with Otomo and some of the um, attitudes that come along with that. Um, and it sort of aligns with the key test, um, how people look at the key test, and they look to pass. The dominant um, desire is to pass with high marks on a key test. I mean, that's what we all do, and that's certainly what we do in Otomo as well. But you miss so much, in my experience, with that attitude, um, because in most cases the sensei really doesn't need. Well, they do when they're traveling to Europe, since they certainly at this point needs, but he's done so much traveling without an Otomo when he was younger. But at this point, he does really benefit from an Otomo. But in most cases, the sensei doesn't need anybody to, dress him or carry his briefcase or any of that. So, in a sense, on the outget, if you think that you're really being of service to the sensei, you've started out wrong already. And it's a class, it's a training, and I really think that it should be taken in that vein when you're assigned to be an Otomo. Is that you figure that I mean, are you eighth dan, ninth dan? No. So in a tomoship, you might as well already accept that you're going to learn a lot of things. And in order to do that, you're going to fail in many areas. Just like a key test, if all you're thinking about is passing, when you fail, you learn nothing at all. So it does take, in the book it says a sense of humility. Um, So I think that's a big factor in Otomo, is that in order to learn, uh, from the teaching of Otomo, humility is a big part of it. You have to be willing uh, to fail and not collapse because of it. Fail or not, it's a it's a key test. And so, just like in a key test, if you move, you don't drop your key. You don't collapse and go, oh, geez. That's the worst thing you could do. You should be really observant and see what causes you to move, what causes you to fail. I mean, that's the purpose of this kind of training. And I think in many ways, it's not looked at um, so correctly. That, oh boy, only the special people get to be Otomo. Um, and well, yeah, do it. You don't seem so special at times. Um, I think that that's just a small perspective of the learning that comes from being Otomo. Anyway, that's sort of one little comment. Anyway,
Yeah, and actually, that was not a little comment, but it brought up a lot of things that I wanted to discuss. One thing is, okay, so the first time I ever the first time I ever traveled to give a seminar years ago, I'd just been promoted to fourth dan. I was asked to teach a seminar in Colorado, and I of course went to Sensei. Hey, these guys want me to come to Colorado and teach seminars. Is that okay with you? Yeah, yeah, you should do that. So I went there. I did, and the person there hosting me, he made it quite clear. He said, "Oh, I just want to let you know that I've been a personal assistant before. I'm going to host you, but I'm not an Otomo. I just want to give you a heads up. So I hope you're not expecting one." I was like, "Oh no, no, no! I don't need to be an Otomo." I remember we were moving from site to site because they didn't have a dojo. They trained at one night they trained at a college. The other night they trained at a dance studio. So we were moving around. And I remember, at the end of the seminar, somebody asked to fold my hakama, so I gave it to them. I go, change, and then they go, "Oh, we gotta hurry." So I left with that person, and I forgot to get my hakama because I wasn't thinking. I was thinking about going to the next. I was wanting to hurry because they needed me to hurry, and I wasn't even thinking about. It. And then I the next morning I go, "Oh crap, where's my hakama? I've lost my own hakama." I remember going to the guy and I said, I don't recall where I left my hakama. I wonder if I left it at the place. And he went, "Oh, let me check. Who folded it?" And I said, I don't know the person's name. They look like this." He called around, and of course, that person had their hakama. I wasn't around, so they stuck it in their bag and said, "Oh, by the way, I'll bring it from the next training session." So I was able to. But I thought to myself then, I went, "Oh, this is one reason, it's nice for someone to be a Toho for sensei because he's thinking about what to teach, all these other things that are coming up, and that's one less thing he has to worry about. That frees up his thing." And I remember it was very interesting. I worked for a very large corporation in Arizona, and the CEO was his name was Maurice Greenberg. He was extremely. I mean, he was the CEO of AIG the before the bailout. A genius. And I said, and one of the vice presidents who regularly met with Mr. Greenberg came to our place, and I said, "Oh, by the way, what's it like to know Mr. Greenberg, and what's his daily routine?" I'm just asking because I'm just curious. And he said, "That's funny you should ask that because you know Mr. Greenberg only thinks about business. He doesn't plan any of his meals. He doesn't plan what he wears. He doesn't plan his day to day schedule. All he thinks about is how to make money. That's it. He has a personal assistant that schedules his meals weeks in advance. He has a personal chef that makes all of his food. He has someone lay out his clothes every morning. He doesn't do any mundane tasks. All he thinks about is making money. And I thought to myself, oh my God, that's a guy who's using an Otomo system there to basically focus it on the relative world, only relative thinking type stuff, And I thought that was quite interesting. And then when I started hearing, about Obama's um, personal assistant, when the presidents have a personal assistant, they're planning all the routine, regular duties, and that's a lot of CEOs have that kind of executive vice presidents that do that kind of thing because they're busy doing other things and they don't have time to focus on that. And that's kind of in the relative world type stuff where a tomo and a teacher on aikido practice or whatever type of spiritual type training you're doing, it's kind of different. That's why I said it kind of amplifies their responsibility of pointing out the internal material that comes up because that internal material is always coming up in you. And think about it, when someone says, "Oh, they're special, they get to be a tomo," dude, you could be your own atomo. You just don't want to be. You don't want to hold yourself to the criteria necessary because likely stuff gets in the way. Laziness gets in the way. I don't want to get up early and do my breathing. Nobody will know if I'm, doing this or that. It's a whole different realm. If you really were a tomo to yourself, your training would be you'd be going to every class. I'm telling you right now. You'd be early, like Lillian is, 30 minutes early for class every day. That's what would be happening if you were your own Otomo, but you're not, and that's okay too. We just have to understand that when the teacher's helping you this way, you need to recognize, and that awareness is, what does it bring up in you? Does it bring up envy, pride, jealousy, anger? What does it bring up? Because it's going to bring up something. It's going to bring up something, and that's something I think Fincher touched on is that it's like it's intensity training. The training is super intense and condensed, and not everybody likes it or enjoys that kind of stuff. You know, but those who want to accelerate their practice, because that's basically what you're trying to accelerate the practice, uh, sometimes beyond what you can handle. uh, I've had that happen to me on several occasions, so yes. Anyway, anybody else? Gloria, do you have any questions or comments?
Well, I do remember, generally women are not um, otomos, at least for male senseis. And we had one woman, she's been mentioned before. Her name, I think Curtis Sensei mentioned her. Her name was Kanta Devi. And she was there, I think, when I started practicing Aikido. And she was very attentive to Nalawai Sensei. She would go up with him and help him change clothes, which Curtis Sensei thought was rather interesting. But she did that. She brought food for him for every class as something that we carried on after, even though I've never been Otomo in that way. The closest that I think we've gotten to it was it was a Hilo seminar, not the last one, but the one before that. Um, Phoenix volunteered to be sort of Otomo uh, for Warrior Sensei, and so which meant picking him up and taking him to the dojo and getting him back and washing his gi at night and things like that. So that's about as close as I have gotten to it. I have never had an Otomo, but when I think David Shaner was describing his experience as a uchideshi in Japan, he said that it was an honor to hold Tohei Sensei's jock straps for him to step into it. And I thought, well, I see why women aren't otomos.
Right, right.
Though I do see, I did see that at one Maui seminar, I think it was the next to the last one, Phoenix and I stayed with Melly, and Phoenix was assigned to be Otomo to one of the female senseis at the Maui dojo. I don't know how she did. I did try not to get in her way. We tried to get her there on time or early so that she could participate. But, that's about as close as I've been to it. So I don't have much experience. No.
Right. Yeah, it's quite interesting. We really, the Maui Dojo really takes pride in having atomos for high-ranking teachers when they come, and that's assigning them, to pick them up at the airport, take them to where they need to go, drive them back and forth to the dojo, etc. It's kind of Keiko style stuff, but it's really good practice. I mean, it's especially if you get somebody who's not nearly on time, and you go, oh, hey, you're so and so's atomo. You remember you have to be here to pick them up early, and they'd be like, oh yeah, yeah. So it kind of helps them, realize, it just ups their game, ups the intensity a little bit, just a little bit, just crank the heat up to two rather than one. You know, so yeah, it's always good. I remember I'm lots of times during seminars I'm the chairman of the Otomo committee, and I help pick Otomos for the various instructors who come. And since we do have a lot of high ranking females, it's always a challenge to get other women to Otomo them when they come, because hey, we only have so many people that are, I remember going, okay, well, let's see, we don't have anybody. We like to, at least have them third queue to be a Tomo, to learn something, and even then, I mean, it's more of a job for the teacher than it is to the Atomo, because they have to look after them. It's like being a manager. Oh, I've got a kid I got to take care of here, because they don't know, and that's a lot, and so it really works both ways. It helps the teacher, but also the teacher is learning, especially if you're a new teacher. If you're not as seasoned as Curtis Sensei, it really is awakening of, oh wow, I've got to actually be teaching and helping this person realize. You're taking on the three responsibilities then. When you have an atomo, and that's why the teacher has three and the student only has two, in a
Well,
sense.
I do have one question in that sense. Then, do you have an Otomo class so that you train some people to be Otomo for the female high-ranking senseis? Because uh, I'm the
We look
highest-ranking sensei at my dojo, and besides Boyer Sensei, and I don't have an Otomo because we don't have anybody really to do that, and we haven't seen each other in person, and except
right.
at the park doing weapons. So, but do you have a class where you teach that?
Normally, like when I'm the organizer of the Atomos before seminar, we will have a couple get-togethers. I wouldn't call them classes; they're a bit unofficial. They're not on the mat; they're downstairs, and we just go over and I help them track. Okay, this is your responsibility. Expect this, this, and this, and this. And if I know the teacher that, like, I remember a few times Kashiwa Sensei came, and I think Glenn Young was Kashiwa Sensei's Otomo on multiple occasions. I would tell Glenn, oh, since I've been Kashiwa Sensei's Otomo before, I'll give him pointers. Hey, he likes this, he doesn't like this. Some teachers want you to go in the dressing room, some teachers do not. Some teachers want certain things. It's all a matter of personality, and that's the Keiko stuff. You know, uh, so yeah, we kind of have an unofficial type deal when we're going to have a seminar. How about you, Lillian?
Hello, Sensei. Hello, everybody. Um, I've never really had the chance to Otomo for anybody, just because of the circumstances in my training as it was. And Fujimoto Sensei, he really didn't want you anywhere near him doing anything. And then Takashi Nonaka Sensei Senior also had a preference that we not bother him too much, you know, or do things for him when we traveled and things. So he he was another one that preferred not to have an Otomo. So, I do feel like sometimes I lost out. That I think I probably would have had some epic stories to tell if I had been. But yeah, sometimes I really feel that's the part I got cheated on in my training. And if I may say so, my favorite Hallmark all-time Otomo story is Linda Sasaki Sensei's Otomo of Eto Sensei. So maybe you can get her to tell my favorite story. Thanks.
Oh, I will. So, Linda, you're now on the spot there for this story.
Which one is it, Lillian? There's so many.
The one where you thought you were helping Sensei by fixing his gi?
Oh, yeah. By the way, I know what Gloria was talking about. One time I was in Haramachi Dojo for business for Eto Sensei. Toei Sensei walks in and we greeted him. And then he goes to the side and he starts taking his pants off. And I just was stunned and I stared and then Maria Sensei grabbed me and turned me around. He goes, oh, no, 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 no. But the one that Lillian is talking about is, it was the time we went to Los Angeles. So I was his Otomo and there were a lot of haphazard things, but he didn't want me to even take his gi to wash. He says, no, 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 just leave it there. And he went to bed at something like about 7:30. And that was what? If it were 8 or 7:30, it was 6 o'clock Hawaii time. And he didn't want to go anywhere. So I was refolding his gi and hakama. And I noticed there was a hole in his pants. And I thought, oh my God, there's a hole in his pants. And when you have a gender difference, it doesn't really click. So I took out my sewing kit because you always carry that around. And I sewed it very neatly closed. And then I refolded it and put it in his bag. And then I don't find out till 4 years later, okay, when the guys, and you can talk to Roy about this, that he was really kind of upset because I closed his number 1 hole.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God, that's so funny. Oh, there's a hole. Let me sew that up. And then
Yeah,
he's
I did
like
the
going,
best job
what
I
happened?
could. And then driving around in California, he wanted to go and visit his brother. And I must have been driving for like 20 minutes and he was just sitting there very quietly. And finally he goes, are we lost? I had to say, oh no, Sensei, we're not lost. We're having an adventure. And then since I was a sippo, but I just Yui'd and went the other way.
Classic. That's so funny. We're having an adventure. We're not lost.
Yeah. It's not quite Otomo, but Nalawai Sensei's wife, Margaret, decided to clean out his office at one point, and she found this old belt that was, getting threadbare and turning white and all of that, and so she throws it away and empties the
No.
wastebasket. Yeah, and so he calls her up and he said, "Did you see my old belt?" And she said, "Yeah, I was cleaning up and it was all ragged and I threw it away." And he said, "Tohei Sensei gave that to me." And she was like, "Oh."
Yes, I
So
remember
trying to help out and, like sewing up the hole. That reminded me.
trying to help out. Oh, that's so classic. So, Alaria, what do you think of all this?
Hi, Sensei. Hi, everyone. Paiva Sensei has told us Sasaki Sensei's story in class before. Yeah, good story. I was wondering, so I've also never really had an opportunity to be Otomo, but I guess just something came up that I'm curious about, and I was wondering if Japan has similar attitudes about like female Otomos for male sensei, or if they're kind of like the US, or if they're more like Europe and they don't care as much.
They're pretty formal. guys with guys, girls with girls. Yeah, there's no mixing of genders with Otomos usually. Anything else?
I don't think so. Thank you, Sensei.
Okay. Uh, so, what about you, Vitali? Do they practice Otomo in your dojo?
Um, Not yet, since we have uh, uh, I have no practice Atomo, no experience Satomo. I see it this practice from the side only on seminars. Then some sensei who leads seminars has Atoma. But I have the question. I see only then sensei came to the seminar with his own Atomo from his dojo, I guess. But I hear that the dojo in which sensei came provide him Atomo. What is the usual practice of providing Atoma to sensei in the dojo from his game, or from the dojo into his game, his
Yeah,
game?
yeah, that's a good question. It's normally what we do is if a teacher, like for example, Curtis Sensei a lot of times travels inter island, and when we go to a seminar in Oahu, he'll travel with an Otomo, usually, and then the dojo will provide an Otomo to help practice. So that kind of gives that, since if they don't get to practice a lot at the outer dojo, they'll assign a Otomo that's like a dojo Otomo to kind of help out. Just expose them to what Otomo is, and just kind of work together in that aspect. Also, when I was living in Arizona, we always, no matter what, if a teacher came, we would supply them with an Otomo just to help them out. They're not familiar with, to drive them around, because we didn't want them to having to drive, or renting a car or anything like that. And we would also help them get to places, like let's say if we had a banquet, or we had a place to go afterwards, for drinks or whatever, we would want to have somebody with him at all times. So that was common. We did that a lot, and it's also good even if your dojo doesn't do that. If you have an opportunity, and if a teacher comes there with an Otomo, you just go up to the Otomo and go, "Hey, is there anything I can help you with?" More than likely they're gonna be like, "Yeah, can you help me with this, this, and this?" And then that kind of gets you in the door and learning, what's going on behind the scenes, what's going on with the student teacher relationship there, because that's what it's really about. It's kind of an amplified, being a Tomo is just nothing more than being an amplification of the training. It's amplifying it, with the teacher on certain things, and it allows the teacher to help you, and reveal things to you that you may not know was going on. I don't
Thank
know
you,
if that helps.
sensei.
You're welcome. How about you, Jan? Any questions, comments?
Does Sensei Lynn Curtis usually have an Otomo?
She has had a Tomo, yes. In fact, there was one person that was assigned to her for several years by Curtis Sensei to be her Otomo, um, during throughout the regular training at the dojo. Because normally there really is no assigned Otomo for Curtis Sensei on day-to-day classes. There are people that will be there that will help him do this or that, and usually it's somebody who normally is a Tomo. Curtis Sensei is very particular on who he travels with, because the person, if you're traveling outside the state is one thing, but if you're traveling outside the country, like to Japan or Europe or the mainland, then there's a lot involved. And he's got to be very comfortable and confident that the person is up to speed. There's probably only 3 or 4 of us that will travel with Sensei, for that very reasons, because he's trained us enough. We're not that um, deaf in a sense of getting things wrong. We have gotten lots of things wrong, but we've minusculed it to maybe only 10% of the time that we're getting things wrong, so that allows us to travel with them outside the state. Um, but yeah, Lynn also, and Lynn hated it. She even told Curtis and say, "I hate having Otomo," because it's work. It's not. You think that the teacher has it easy, but actually it does not. Remember, there's the 3 rules that they're doing with the Otomo when the Otomo only has 2. So it's a lot of work for them. So yeah, but day to day, Curtis Sensei normally does not. He has a few people, and then that's also an opportunity to bring up people. To go, okay, this class year, like we would have it to where if you were testing or you were like going for a high ranking test, we may say, okay, you're Curtis Sensei Tomo for this class, or that kind of thing to kind of help them and what have you. So, or I think if you were going to be traveling with Sensei, the next seminar, then up until that seminar you were his day to day at Tomo, at the dojo. I think that's what we did for a while as well. Just an opportunity. It's always just an extra opportunity to train. Anybody else? I don't know if any of the friend family there or Charlotte would like to chime in. I know some of you um, have seen, Curtis Sensei with his Otomos, or, when other teachers come, like when we have Shinichi Sensei or another high ranking instructor, come for an HKF seminar. And then some of you who've seen Sensei in Europe, it's a different matter. I've always noticed that when he goes to Japan, it's it's a different Otomo experience than if you're going inner island or to the mainland or Europe. And I noticed that, and I even brought that. I think I brought that up to him one time. I said, it's a little different experience if you're the Otomo going to Japan. He's not teaching; he's going there to see his teacher. So that's one. His mindset's a little different than if he's leading a seminar and exploring a theme, because a lot of times when Curtis Sensei is teaching regularly in Maui, he's exploring a theme to reveal at a seminar. Before he goes there, he's revealing it to himself, whatever the theme may be, and then he's going to really get into it at the seminar. So that's why it's always good. He always encourages people to go to seminars, because that's kind of like his recital, where he's been practicing this theme of revealing this theme to students, and now he's going to go to a seminar and really unveil it to the students, and basically expect them to fully understand everything. So yeah, that's the one thing I've noticed, me personally, with Curtis Sensei and going to Japan or going to the inner islands or going to the mainland or Europe. I've atomoed him on every. I've atomoed him inner island, Japan, mainland, and Europe. So I've kind of seen the whole perspective per se in that aspect. Fincher, anything else you'd like to reveal there? Are you good?
Gloria, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm going to observe that when we go to seminars on Maui, apparently the dojo has an assigned Otomo for Sensei because he's doing the seminar. Do
Yes.
you, on a regular basis, I'm assuming you do, meet Sensei at his car when he drives up, take his bags and stuff and carry them in? Because we try to do that for Boyer Sensei. I'm teaching a class when he comes, so if Phoenix is there, then she can go do that. Otherwise, there is not someone to meet him, but we try to observe the protocol as much as possible. And I assume that that's what most dojos do if they have people available, but I don't know because I've only kind of
Uh,
experienced yours and mine.
so Sensei is at the dojo before anybody else gets there. So he's there at 4 p.m. for a 6:30 class. So normally there's not anybody there at 4 o'clock to carry his bags, but we do carry them out with him and wish him goodbye and what have you at his car. But yeah, normally. But like if he is coming in for a seminar, and a lot of times like on the weekends, if we're having a seminar, he'll get there after breakfast and there'll already be people at the dojo, of course, waiting for him. Yeah, so that does happen. But on day-to-day classes, he's there before anybody. Jack has his hand up. So Jack,
Hello, Sensei.
hello.
Well, I don't have much to add. I haven't really, I've never been anyone's personal Otomo, and haven't done a lot of, Otomo training. But what I can say is just, I really appreciate hearing everybody's firsthand accounts of their own Otomo training. So thank you all.
Yeah, oh, that's great. Yeah, there is going to be a book. Curtis Sensei is in the midst of writing a book called Otomo about his life experiences. And a lot of it has to do with his experience with Suzuki Sensei, of course. So we can. I don't know where he is with it. I read a draft. However, when I talked to him over the weekend, he said, "I have completely rewritten the draft, so please don't read anything that you previously have for me on Otomo." I went, "Oh, okay. Could you give me something that you have rewritten and you'd like me to share?" And so that's what I will do. I will end the class with an excerpt from his new book called Otomo. I'm not sure. He didn't give me a chapter or where this is in the book, so I don't know where it is. It's just a paragraph. Beginning with the time of my early youth, through the great ignorance and arrogance of my humble Aikido white belt days, I attempt to express the utter horror of discovery, as much of what I thought was true and meaningful in my life is exposed to me as the opposite. As the chosen Otomo to Suzuki Sensei, I accompanied him around the globe, desperately trying to keep up with this great man, while remaining woefully short in the commitment department. Even so, little by little, through the years of great patience and compassion on the part of my teacher, a hint, a wondrous inkling of the actual purpose of this life began to emerge as a real and actualized aspect of experience. I learned that through this kind of practice, our culturally conditioned ideas about spirituality, love, commitment, and honoring finally begin to drop away, and a seed of innocence begins to regrow ever so slowly into the core of what will one day become a mature adult human being, shouldering the responsibility of supporting others in the same lifelong work. So that's an expert from his book that will come out. I don't know when, but I'm sure soon, hopefully. It will be a good book. I'm confident. I've read the draft, and if he's rewritten it, I'm sure it's even better because when you get an idea on paper and then condense it, it's going to be like very very good. So with that, I notice we have approximately 4 weeks left of the manual. I went through the manual. We have 4 weeks of classes left, and then after that, I do not know what will happen with this class. But I thought if you can come the next 4 weeks, I'll try to make them as better than ever. So anyway, thank you all very much. Domo arigato gozaimashita. And we will close tonight. Have a good week. Hope to see you on Wednesday or Friday or Saturday. Aloha.